We have a few volunteers building that process for it. We really appreciate it. There's a lot happening for us in the RevThink space with many of the one-on-one conversations that we have taking place. We spent the week clearing our schedule, opening up conversations for others. Those of you in Slack, I appreciate you reaching out to us there too. We are available, and we'll make ourselves more available in the upcoming weeks to talk to each of you. So again, it just means so much to Joel and I to get those messages. We appreciate you all. And here he is, Marcel. Marcel, you're in charge.
The one and only. Say hello, Marcel.
Hello.
All right, I know you're just getting settled, so we'll give you a quick second. I'm also just sending out a quick note to everyone to let them know that we're live today. And I will also send out the email, Tim. Thank you for that reminder. So, Tim, do you want to mention to everyone the chatter that's been going on in the 7 Ingredients Slack channel, just as a warm-up before we dive into today's topic on timing?
Yeah, I think everyone here already knows, and have been watching already knows that we started a Slack work group called 7 Ingredients. Those channels, by the way, are broken into the different disciplines. It's the theory we have. You have to master these 7 ingredients in order to run a creative business. So we broke them into those originally just to have conversations about finance or production. Obviously, what's happening is there's different conversations happening cross-channel. So just keeping up with that, I added a few today and willing to add more channels based on the types of conversations you want to have. We'd love to have it. And one of the channels I did open up was the one of what's the theme song for this season. So as people are throwing suggestions out there, don't stand so close to me was Lou's suggestion. I think that one from the Police, that might be it. I heard also Minutemen Corona. I think that might be a great one that's out there. So please keep on throwing those out there. We're going to need a theme song to kind of get us through this time. And Joel, we got to figure out how to get a theme song running through this Zoom so we have like startup music going into this. Even if I go grab my boombox and play it from my desk here, get into the microphone if we have to.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I'm hitting send on this email that's going to go out to just a few folks. So I want to make sure this looks good because you know how it is. You never want to hit that big send button and have something be mistaken.
Joel, I also want to throw out there, I know yesterday we did a live webinar, and in that you mentioned the pipeline module. It might be good for people to know that you are 80-90% done with that, and that is coming soon. But I know you've been hit up a lot. Oh, here's the one. It's the End of the World by REM is another one. That's great, Brent.
Thanks for that, Tim. Yes, so I mentioned yesterday on the live stream, managing uncertainty. And by the way, that live stream is going to be available for replay on YouTube, I think any minute now. So just stay tuned, and Ethan will post in the Slack group about that when it goes live. But yeah, I mentioned that I have this new module, setting up your sales pipeline, where I just walk through the basics of a sales pipeline. And I think in times like this, not to be overly opportunistic, but I think it's an important tool that everyone needs to be nurturing a lot of conversations over the next 6 months to avoid this feast or inevitably deep famine we might be going into. So I'm going to offer that module for free, anybody that wants it. All you have to do is go into 7 Ingredients and DM me and say, hey, I'd love to get access to that module. So that's your homework. If you want that tool, just hit me in Slack and I'll be happy to share it with you.
So let's start with the big welcome. Hello, Joel. Hello, Marcel. It's so good to have you guys back today. I don't know, how's your week going? What's happening with each of you this week?
It's been different. It's a challenge. I mean, I'm a person's dude. So I need to see people all the time. So I need to see the people that I've been working with. So to me, it's like a new skill that I'm learning. How to see Tim through my screen.
Yeah.
I was saying that the other day, and there's like a talk. At this point, like a lot of the remote artists all excited, right? oh yeah, we always said the remote is the way to go. And I mean, dudes, I agree. But once the shit is over, I gotta tell you, I need to be working at the studio with people. You know, I think we're all gonna get tired of the remote thing at some point. You know,
Yeah.
it's all the way around. We're gonna be like, oh, this shit blows. I need to be in a place with a lot of different people. You know, maybe not high five. You know, for a while.
Marcel, you're such an extrovert. Every time you talk, I feel like you're like me. Like the other peopleness is what we're all about. It's so funny that it happens.
Yeah, I need
wherever we go. We want to. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to see like, you know, my friends and the coworkers. I feel like there's something about the energy when you're like together with people, because it's like you can pass the emotion and the heat, you know, so people can feel your vibe when you're present. You know, but yeah, I feel like I'm learning this new skill, but I'm trying to do like some routines, and I'm adapting, you know, it's been good. I mean, I'm having
I heard, I think it was Jay at Giant Ant mentioned to me that there's that certain things slow down. Like, hey, should I make this brown? That was his example, and I immediately got it. Like, of course, when you're in a giant mosh pit with a bunch of artists and you just go, should I make this brown? Ba-da-ba-bum. There's this quick little banter back and forth. But in this era, it's, let me show you what I'm pointing at, get on a Zoom thing, share my screen. This is what I mean, this brown, no that. And he said certain things are slowing down, and that's frustrating.
Oh, wow.
But the other thing that I'm hearing, and this is of course the big topic for today, is so many owners are asking me, and I know asking you, Tim, when? Like, yeah, I know I need to be thinking about doing these certain things, but what's the timing, right? When do I actually make this decision to not spend this money, or to cut that expense, or to maybe lay somebody off, or that kind of a thing? And that's, of course, a lot of what we said. Let's talk about that today. But Tim, have you been getting hit up with a lot of people asking you that question?
Well, yeah, it's exactly it. And I think, Marcel, you brought this topic up a couple of days ago, because it really is on people's mind of, hey, now that there's a sense of what might come and how long this will last, you know, the conversation that people are having internally is what's their obligation to their employees and to their clients and really to the community, and then what's their obligation to themselves, and trying to balance out, you know, how long could I survive in a way to get past this new gap. So the idea of timing and when is really like on the front of everyone's mind. And almost every conversation I've had this week is grabbing some spreadsheet and kind of putting the financials out there in one cash flow form or another, and helping people to get to the decision points there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marcel. So tell us, like you brought up this topic earlier, the conversation of when is. You want to kind of just tell us what you're thinking and
the
questions you're asking yourself?
You know, the first thing I thought, because everything happens so fast, right? And but I feel like one thing that we need to be aware of, our industry moves fast, so that reaction is actually expected from you. You have to act fast, because clients call you all the time, say, hey, I have a project for you. It starts in a few days, and then you're like, oh, you're trying to book freelancers. So it's part of our nature to be reacting fast to things. And I think this time it's hard to react fast to something that we don't know, you know? Yeah. So it's, and I'll go back a little bit to our initial conversation, Tim, because again, I wanted to reinforce this. It's okay to feel that way. It's okay to feel overwhelmed, to feel that worry and everything. But there's a lot of things we can do, you know? And then I'll go things that I have control, not to react to things that I don't have control. So, for example, to me, it's important at this time to think about the things that I have control, you know, because I don't have control over whatever the president or the border is closed. I can't call Trump and say, hey, open that border. You know, I can't do any of that. I can't control when are we going to get out of the situation. but I have control over my actions, you know? So I've been doing this exercise of like defining the things that I have control and what kind of action that I should take, because I don't want to get lost on things that I don't have control. If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, right, in the live stream, because we had this moment when we said, I'm going to actually quote what we said. The idea of don't put hope in things you cannot control. This is where most owners, and I'm sure you've had this thought, Marcel, of, oh, I just need to go out and close that deal. I need to sell. I need to go get the next thing because all of this opportunity is now at risk. But the idea is, how do you be proactive with what you do control? And the things that are under control, I think, are sometimes, it's just easy to forget that in a time like this, you really have to just say, what can I control? What can I influence? And how do I get a look at what's out ahead of me so I can make decisions now, or make decisions even for next week or next month when I'm not in the middle of it.
And I think, Joel, I reached out to some of my clients on a personal level, and I mean it for that. I wasn't trying to find an excuse to ask for more work or anything. I just wanted to see how are they doing personally, you know, like, guys, are you guys okay? Is your home like all good? Is everyone healthy? Are you guys all good? Everything's, you know, how's everything? And then I start getting calls from my clients, and it's funny because we are used to chat with these people for like an hour about work. We were having conversations for 45 minutes about similar feelings. You know, we're feeling the same, you know, everyone feels the same. So when I say about being strategic, it's like, think about that your client's going through the same feeling that you're having right now. It's the same feeling across the board. We are worried about the company, you know, as a business owner, of course, not as right now. My mind goes to like, you know, 9 months from now, or maybe like a year and a half from now, or like 6 months. So I'm trying to create those projections, right? But they're having the same kind of problems. They don't know what's going to happen. So they're like scrambling as well. So some things that I decided to do on my own, like as an exercise, it's to pay closer attention to what the clients are going through, you know? And I feel like us, animation and post-production houses, we are in a very, you know, special place within this whole mess. If you think about the whole world going through like a crisis, going through like, you know, people losing jobs, professors and all of that, all we need to work is a freaking computer, you know, and our creativity. So we are like in a very different situation. You know, it's okay to feel that way, sure, but we are in a different situation. I'm talking about for post-production, but I have some ideas for live action people too, you know, like things that I've been thinking about, like what can we collaborate, or how can we, you know, work together so we can move the industry as a whole. But I feel like, you know, I have a lot of things that I wrote for myself, and I'm happy to share that with, like, you know, with people. So maybe that would bring a little bit of information of like, you know, what are we doing in terms of being strategic at state.
Yeah, I would love to hear that, because I think everyone's asking that. It's what we posted in that little blurb about in the post today. Everybody's wondering, okay, well, not only what do I do, but when do I do it? Do you have any, like, a process or a routine or something that you do at state to help you come to those decisions?
Yeah. So one thing I think we defined like tiers, right? So I wrote this other day. I'm like, I'm trying to work with, you know, with consultants like you guys and, you know, some other people that I trust to create a schedule and like some milestones for crisis management, you know? So for example, I have the green flag where we are now. We have the yellow flag, which is like going to be in a few months. And then we have the red flag when things are getting crazy. When I say the red flag, to me, if I hit that point, it's when things are actually, the whole world is actually like going, you know, under, you know, like it's just going to be very, you know, lean and very, you know, small, so we can have like drastic actions. But as of right now, I'm trying to I'm trying to come up with those like, milestones, and working with the people that you trust, not work by yourself. You have to share information out. It's time that you need to go and ask for help. And I love when Tim says that you need to ask for help now, not help saying, hey, I'm desperate. No, just help me understand the situation, because even like when it's funny, because I was talking to a psychologist that it's a friend of mine, and he's saying like most of the psychologists, their job is to make you talk so you find that solution yourself. So when you talk, about the problem, and you call someone and someone is just listening,
right.
You're just listening.
Yeah, I think we're
out the situation.
Like we're tribal creatures, right? We need each other, and we're actually kind of built for that conversation and need for conversation to find our thoughts, to make us feel good and give us comfort. This sequestered lifestyle is really preventing us from some of that interaction, that human interaction that we actually need to work out our feelings, our emotions. And I know some of us are going through the stages of grief, and it's others that help us get through those items. The denial stage and the loss stage and the frustration stage. It has to come out one way or another. When we sequester each other and then sequester those feelings, really we're bottling that stuff up. And in a way, like it feels like a debt burden that we're going to have to work out eventually. Like when we finally get released from all this, we're going to have to let go of some of that. And there'll be a new sense of loss, I think, on the other side of it. So it's such a great interaction to have, or great way to kind of work out some of these feelings and thought is get each other involved and have that conversation.
Yeah.
Find some small groups. Even I've been encouraging some of my clients, we have this Slack channel. Maybe it's a business owner you already know or business owner you've never met, but they're in the same boat. That's why we're talking to each other in Slack. Don't be afraid to reach out and just ask a question and make that personal connection as best you can.
Yeah.
The communities kind of come together. I feel like it's a little bit of a church. Like you all know what you believe. That's why you're together in that group. And our encouragement is just like, let that energy flow. Let that conversation be part of what's the genuine part. Yesterday in the webinar, Jamie shared what her experience has been over the last week. And it's so amazing to think about the effort that she's put into the care of her employees. And she shared about, at the end of it, just logging on and all filing for employment together. And I just love that human moment that took place, because many of us want to hide away. Imagine the previous persona of like our overhang of like, oh, if I'm going to unemployment, I feel like a failure. I feel like and you feel isolated in that moment. The fact that she stepped up and she goes, no, we're still in this part of it together. Yeah. We're still working through this process together. It's such an amazing kind of energy that you can bring as a leader and a business owner.
Yeah, and I think there's something about the word failure. So we always think about like we failed. Oh man, I'm doing this. No, I have a feeling that we got to a point that the whole world is like in trouble.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like there are things that we can do to get through this, because we are, as like a post-production houses and animation studios, we are in a different position at this point, so we can still keep working and helping clients. And one thing that I wanted to mention here, Tim, which is really important, I feel like when we start working together, I remember me telling you like consistency, you always wanted to be consistent with your sales. Now everyone's worry is like, oh my God, I need to bring that amount of money. Otherwise everything will be, bad. And, I'm going to lose my company. No. And then one thing that you taught me was like, all you have to do is like, be comfortable with this. If you're just you doing one animation, that's okay. Maybe you're going to make the same amount of cash that you were making before.
Yeah, right. Right. Sometimes it doesn't go in your pocket. Yeah.
Or if you're like running a company that it's like, $20 million and then you make this amount of money as well. It's about that perception, that being comfortable, whatever you are in this situation. So I feel like part of the exercise here is to find that comfort. It's okay to, of course, when you think about as a business owner, the last thing I want to do is to cut my staff. No, I'll try to protect my staff as much as I can. I'll go above and beyond. They were there for me. They were with me when things were cool. They stayed, up late, posting projects and putting decks together, reaching out to clients. So I'm going to protect those people for sure, but we're trying to understand with those procedures of the red, the green, yellow, and red flag, I'm trying to see how much I can stretch myself, to
I'm
that.
curious to know, Marcel, because I just want to know, it'd be really practical. Is that looking at your cash and just saying, okay, in this many months I will be yellow, and this many months I'll be red? I mean, practically speaking, or is it the projects and the deadlines? What is it that you're measuring?
I'm measuring everything. I'm measuring cash flow, and then the movement. I can tell you guys, just to bring a little bit of light in this whole darkness. I have clients reaching out to us. Now we're still bidding on projects. We're still coming up with solutions, and even working with our clients and trying to get a few things done. So there is motion still going on in the industry. It's not that everyone is on the couch just watching TV. No, people are still moving, in that sense. So I'm trying to take all those factors like the clientele, reach out, the cash flow, and I'm preparing for I always go by the worst case scenario ever, because whatever happens from there, I'm positive, so if you prepare for what's the worst that can happen? Oh, we run out of we don't get any projects within 6 months or a year. Oh man, that's the worst case scenario. What can I do to prevent that? And then start taking actions. So I always project the worst case scenario and I work backwards, to create the actions and say, okay, this is what's going to happen if I don't move anything, if I don't work, if I'm not strategic.
All right. So now you talked about consistency, because here's my next $1 million question for you. How often do you do that? How often do you look at those numbers, and is that a routine that you follow?
Yeah, I check numbers every week. It's a weekly exercise. And most of the business owners, especially creatives, that's a freaking boring conversation, right? You're oh, I don't want to talk about this, I don't want to see this, but it's super important. And then you guys actually, when we were working together, you're I remember Tim saying to me, Marcel, when you put a meeting together, the most interested person in that meeting is you. Whatever, as a business owner, man, if you don't show up in that meeting or in that specific thing, for example, cash, the most interested person in cash in the whole company should be you. So you have to be in that meeting. You have to check that. You have to do those. You have to have that routine and keep checking, especially now that you have to maybe check twice a week. Think about solutions. Maybe move a little thing here and there. One thing that I wanted to mention, and Tim, I wanted you to expand a little bit about the cash flow. I put in here something that it's cut the unnecessary. Because one thing that I noticed that before, I would say there's world before coronavirus and after. So before coronavirus, we were in this whole mode of
we call it BC and AC or whatever. Before Corona.
Yeah, we could touch our faces and we could see other people.
Yeah. But anyway, so it's let's say BC, we were doing oh man, we have all these subscriptions, all these little things, and all these extravaganza that we were doing, and it was good. It was cool, right? We have a lot of resources. Now I'm let's take a look and just cut the unnecessary things that we were even paying that we check every month. Let's say maybe there is a service that you pay and you just cut that. You don't need it. Just start trimming the unnecessary. But what I wrote for me is staff is necessary. So I put staff in the necessity of the business. So I want to
Marcel,
a bit about that.
again, like this week, it's been a lot of people and a lot of conversations, and I have to get into some sense of like the when process. One of the things I feel like comes to me is people ask me, what should I do? What should I do with my staff? What should I do with my clients? What should I do with this project? And I try to convert that to like, well, it's not what necessarily, it's when should you make a decision about your staff, and when should you make a decision about, so that you have like these tipping points that you're talking about in your modeling. So you say, well, I know I can go so far, but if I make one decision today, I can get a different distance. Mm-hmm. And the visibility that I use is this tool I call cash flow. Mm-hmm. I think most of the people listening know what I mean by cash flow. There's some creative programs out there that do it. I know that I do something very unique in the modeling that I do and how I think through the processing and what I put on the cash flow, so that there are specific decision points and conversations that could take place. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that you're saying, Marcel, is the decision points that you're going to put in your modeling and your understanding of where the money is going to go or how long you can survive is your belief. One of the things you have to come to the table is like, well, what do you believe about this situation, the BC and AD, the new items that we're going to deal with in this world. And that belief is really going to inform some of your decisions. If you think it's only going to be a couple of weeks, you're going to really cut down and make less changes than you believe it's going to have to last longer. And I've been coming to meetings asking the first question, well, what do you believe about this? So I don't make the wrong assumptions. But I'll say this, like that specific visibility and that toolkit that you get to play with, you have your financial decisions played out. It's not only about the money. If anyone's listened to our podcast, they know that cash flow isn't about money, it's about time. And it's not even about the dollars, it's about what's represented by those dollars. Should I have freelancers do this work? Should I move out of my office and not have to pay rent? Should I ask my client for that money now in accounts receivable, or can I hold back? Or if I negotiate a new project, this is the conversation Joel and I just had, someone's getting a new project, it's $50,000. They would love to have that job in, but the client's asking them, oh, I'll pay you later. Well, that's really now in this, like that's a debt you're carrying. So you're going to spend money on behalf of someone else. There's a burden there that if you can't model out what that money means to you and how important it is, you can't even negotiate that decision. So there's a lot of opportunity you see. And I think you've seen that with the work that you and I have done at State over the years. Go ahead, Joel.
Let me just get you to expand on that, Tim, because there's a really important distinction I would really want everyone to think about. And that is, you just said, wait, Joel, your studio is going to win a $50,000 project. And I think in a time like this, sweet, I'll take it. But you said that's a liability. And then my brain said, as an owner, wait, how is landing a big project right now a liability? That sounds like cash. Right. I need that. But as I put that on a cash flow report, what I'll see is, well, that $50,000 doesn't show up until half is going to be down here, and then the other half is way down there. But then I have all of these expenses against it. And how that flows, of course, can put me in a real jam. So why? Yeah. Tell me more.
Yeah, sure. I mean, when you look at the accounts receivable and accounts payable on a timeline, you'll see that they're offset, right? Some projects you spend the money and then you get the money in house. Well, you're carrying that deficit for your client. You're spending money on their behalf under your name and your credibility, hoping that their credibility fills in that gap later. That's how a bank works, by the way. That's why you have a credit score. Sure, you can have my money now. Will you pay me back? And is it worth the risk to do that? You can switch that and you can say to the client, give me the money and I'll deliver the goods as well. Well, now you're asking your client for credit. Hey, trust me, I will give you what we're promising at the end of that cash cycle. But that offset there of money and effort, that's the risk and reward you get as a business owner. Mm-hmm. In today's environment, you have to ask yourself the question, like, is it worth it? And some clients, I'm going to tell you honestly, they're just not worth it. They're not going to be there and they're not going to pay when you need to. There might even be like some well-known production company out there, but they don't know their future specifically to know when their money is going to come in from their media buyer or seller to pay you back. So that you might have to stretch that cash out longer. that's why in a cash flow modeling, that accounts receivable isn't revenue. It's money in your pocket, and the switch between the two. You almost feel like, Joel, like I should do something to show people what this modeling looks like. There's, we're talking I keep in my mind thinking about, like, if someone's listening to a podcast, they can't even see my hand movements and gestures that I'm making as I do this. But I think there is, who said, the guy from Jason said that to me once. He's like, once he saw the cash flow, it was like having cataract surgery. Like, once you see it, it all kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, so maybe there's something we can do out there for that.
I would say
that's what I'm worried about.
I would say, Marcel, you just put your cash flow up on the screen, but that then again, that might not be such
yeah, Marcel, show us.
No, but
also,
I do say this though, that Tim, the little demo that you did with my current Jumpstart class, just showing them some of the basics of even how to look at your cash and how money comes in and goes out and all that. That maybe there's an opportunity for us to show people here what that looks like and how it works, so they can understand that basic principle.
Yeah, I'll totally do it. I mean, at this point, I feel like I only have so many hours in a week. And if there's anything I can just put out there and have people view and see, I would even go so far of like, I cleared my schedule this week to have conversations I need to. I clear my schedule for the next 2 weeks and sit down with people and walk through it. It is right now the tool we need to make those decisions. And it's, again, I try to represent, it's not about money. It's about those decision points and the opportunities you're looking for. And there really is a lot of hope. I know the conversations I started this week at the beginning of the 30 minutes, there was a lot of questions. By the time we got to the other side, there was some plans and some strategies and ideas. Right. And to bring that hope, that would be easy. I'd be happy to do it.
So I think there's a lot of like movement too, in terms of when I reach out to clients. Like I had a conversation with a client that they're like a pretty big client of ours, but I was asking about productions, and he's like, oh, we're moving forward, with some stuff that we already shot. Man, we're releasing shows. We are going to do some promo. He was even asking me, he's like, are you guys ready to tackle some of the stuff that we have coming up? I'm like, yeah. So I feel like, it's not that the whole thing is going to stop. And I'm projecting, and this can be just me. You guys can, maybe if this is not true, maybe you guys can blame me. I feel like this whole thing is going to last for 8 to, I would say, 10 weeks. That's my projection. I feel like we're going to be seeing like, us being home for the next couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden things are going to start getting back to to motion. We're going to be able to do a few things here and there.
So oh, sorry, Joel, I'm just a quick question. Mark, aren't you in the state of California kind of in a lockdown are they saying 4 weeks or 5 weeks or something like that?
Yeah, 4 weeks up until April 19th. And
that's solid lockdown. Then they'll release slowly people's ability to function again. So double that to normal, like a normal kind of sense that you can go out and operate with one another. So we're looking for 8 weeks.
8 weeks to 12 weeks. That's when I think, that things will get back in place, not place, but I mean, we'll be able to get out and do things. But this is my projection. That can always change. But, I feel like, again, we are in a different position. I feel like, animation and post-production, I keep thinking about my live action people, and I've been checking on them, and it's important. So another thing that when I was having a conversation with my client, I told him like, hey man, how about that production company you always use? And he goes, oh my God, I need to check on them.
Good feel. Yeah.
So like, oh, dude, good. He's like, maybe I have some stuff that they can shoot at home, because this production company, they have like a stage in the back of their house, so they can do some tabletops and stuff, So I was like, cool. That's, we got to keep talking to the live action people that we always use, because they were there for us as well. It's not because we're in a different position that we're going to, forget about them. It's good to check to see how they're doing. If it's like, how are they thinking? Maybe help them rethink about their business in this next, 8 to 12 weeks.
So Hey, Tim, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create I'm going to create a URL, because anyone that's thinking, man, I would love to have a chat about that process of looking out over the next 12 weeks, or hopefully 10, like you said, Marcel. So just give me a second though, because I'm going to just drop a URL. I have to connect a little thing where people can actually just schedule a call if they want to say, hey, can I just chat with you for 30 minutes? So you guys fill my dead air while I get this thing made.
So you're just going to create like an invitation list for people if they want to sit down with us? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I just want to drop a URL where people could just say like, hey, here's my name and an email, and then grab a time if they just want to chat with us one-on-one, where it's not public, right? They can actually just talk with us privately.
Okay, yeah, I'd be happy to do that. We'll have to figure out what some of my schedule is, but maybe even just can split it up between us. I'm pretty sure I can figure out something with Jake this weekend and get something up and running too. Let's get this to some specifics of encouragement that we can give others, and then maybe we can open this up for a couple minutes for Q&A. Marcel, when you brought this topic up, one of the phrases that I have used very often that I'd like to throw out there is the thought that like you should make promises you can keep, and that is a principle. So in the conversation about timing, one of the items that you're kind of committing to when you're looking at your timing is what you should be telling others and giving other people some sense of what you're going to be available for, what their needs are going to be, and how we're going to deal with this together. And when you have someone on staff or a freelancer and you're not communicating with them, you're kind of holding back that promise out of the fear that you won't be able to keep that promise. To me, like if I think about timing, I want to work out the timing decision of when I'm going to make certain decisions. And then I want to tell people as honestly as possible with some integrity of, hey, as of next Friday, I can no longer have freelancers. I know someone that made that decision just yesterday. And therefore, they're not kind of giving someone a false hope that they're going to be okay. As soon as they made that decision, they told freelancers, so they have enough time to put it out there. And now they can recognize, I can't keep that promise, therefore I'm not going to make that promise. And they made the decision to hold back on the freelancers. I think staff works the same way. It's this thought of saying, hey, let's all go to 3/4 time for the next 4 weeks, and I'll pay you 3/4 of your salary. That will give us an extension on what money we have and available to you. And at that point, we can make another decision. But I can make a promise this far, and I can keep that promise. So I'm actually going to make that promise and keep it. And funny enough, Marcel, this conviction came. You're going to remember this. You were actually a freelancer at a production company out of New York at the time. And they were struggling, and we needed to kind of work out deals with our freelancers. And you were one of the freelancers. And I remember calling you. I don't know if you remember this. I think you do. You've called me on it before. And I had to say to you, like, hey, I know we owe you money. I can't pay you when I owe you, but I'll make a promise. I can pay you regular payments over a 4 or 5, I don't know what it is, month or week period to make sure we're whole. And there's a little bit of a edge there, but it's a promise that I knew when I said it, I could keep it, and it kind of makes the situation better. So to me, that's one thing. Like, make promises you can keep, and have a sense of what you can do. Make sure you verbalize those, and make sure others know it. What advice would you kind of give in this timing?
I would go for the same thing. I would go for transparency. Like, be transparent. This is a moment that we all need to be realistic, and be transparent. And I feel like everyone is willing to compromise here and there. Even like clients, when we were putting bids together yesterday, I was like, when me and Alex were taking a look at the bid, and we're like, what do we want from this project? We just wanted this project to happen. We need this thing. So let's pay closer attention. Let's negotiate with the client. So be very transparent, and even ask, and make the other part responsible, to be transparent as well. So when you're transparent and they say, I'm being transparent, you need to be transparent with me. So create that relationship that it's like everyone's telling like what's the real deal is, and not being like, hoping that this is going to happen. No, what's the real situation? So I'm working with that, just being very transparent about everything.
I love that. if I were to be honest with you guys, I do this for a living, right? I pull out people's finances and I make a strategy and plan for it. And it was late last night and I had to do it for my own personal finances. And I'll say, like, I was afraid to get started. I hated asking the questions of what my obligations are. The tax deadline got pushed here, but that's a real burden for business owners and each individual. And I honestly hated the idea of opening that up and start to just that internal dialogue. I haven't even talked to my wife yet about some of the things I think we have to honestly deal with, because she's trying to deal with trying to get this young couple that wants to get married hitched somehow. So she's dealing with a totally different stress. But it really hurts, and we know it. I think that's why, Joel, I said to you, like, I would totally do that. I am living it myself. I don't want anyone to think that I'm any better or greater. It literally hurts my feelings to think through some of the stuff I have to deal with. And I think if we were honest, we all know that that's a lot of the panics that we have, which is probably why at 3 a.m. we're all slacking each other.
Well, it's also it's like that process of going to the doctor, right? You kind of have to, what is it you say? Show him your rashes and all the things that you're sort of embarrassed about. But the reality is he or she is there to help you. By the way, I love this comment from Garris, our old friend up there in Toronto.
Oh, hey,
Future
Garris.
cash flow has allowed us to openly talk about the future of the business so we can make decisions as a team. I think everyone has appreciated it. So Tim, here's what I built. Tell me if this works. This is a little dinky form that is now on our website. So for anybody that wants to just grab 30 minutes and process, ask questions, whatever, even if you just want to cry, honestly, I mean, I've been there, so I know exactly what it's like. So if you fill out the form, I guess we'll get a list and then we'll go through them and try and send an email to everybody so you can schedule a chat with us. So
I'd be happy to.
We'll do our best to manage our schedules and try and fit everybody in. So we'll start there, and then I'll go ahead and post this.
And you're going to join me, right, Joel? I don't have to do it all alone.
Yeah, no, I mean, we'll clearly have to divide and conquer, because we'll probably have, probably 50 of these things over the next week or two. So I know that's fine though.
Yeah, I could probably do 20. If I was honest, I could probably do 20 of those conversations in the next 2 weeks, 20, 30 of them. So if that's an open slots, or between the two of us, we do 30 or 40 of them, I think that would be, that's a great way to think of it. Thanks for doing that, by the way. I think that's really,
Well, so we're 15 minutes over our 30 minutes stream here. Did you guys see there is one question in the Q&A. So before we wrap up, I just wanted to make sure that we try and get that. But yeah, Marcel,
let's do 15 more minutes of this, if that's open for everybody. If that's okay with everyone, we'll do 15 more minutes, do some Q&A out there, because I know we've been cutting the Q&A short for the last couple of days.
Yeah. Do you have a minute there, Marcel? I'll read this question from Greg.
Yeah. No, I have a few minutes.
Okay. So Greg is asking, always hedging for the long term. Worst case scenario, I'm thinking of including my employees in the conversation of what their financial future looks like. Basically asking what money they need to survive in order to retain them for a longer period. Of course, if they're not working, they're not going to get paid in full. Thoughts? What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Tim, you go, and I'll go after.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about this, Greg, from a practical side, just really quickly, and then I want to kind of talk to you about kind of a little bit of philosophical, but I won't go very long. The practical side is, I think that's genuine and it's good, and you should know it. The buy-in of others, like the ownership of these decisions by others, is really great, and that transparency to your employees, so they know what you're thinking, what's available to them, is awesome. I think that it's also an ability to share in the wins, so that when a project comes in the future, they get what it specifically means to them. Honestly, over the last few years, and maybe nearly a decade, I think there's been a disconnect between the freelancers and the business owners on what it really takes to get a project done, what those costs are and how they're out there. And the rates and changes have been an ongoing conversation since the minute I started RevThink. This is a chance to start gathering those connections and put them together. Like, here's the revenue, here's how we split up, and here's what's available to you. So I love that. But also on the philosophical part, and the question you asked is interesting to me, because you're saying you want to hedge the long-term worst case scenario. And I'll just say this, like, if you're going to think about the worst case scenario, I also want to process, like, what's the benefit of that worst case scenario? And I don't, maybe I need to say it in a different way. When you cut things back to a certain degree and you retain, let's say retain cash or extend out how long you'll survive, there's going to be a benefit in the long run for you. So instead of thinking of instead of using the words worst case scenario, how about this, think of it in a way of like philosophically think about like, what's a long-term strategy that if I hold something back now or make certain cutbacks now, or, partner with my freelancers at this point, what's going to be available to us as a team as the purse strings are released, or there's new opportunities out there on the other side of the current situation. So I want you to like not always think of it as like, oh darn, I have to do the worst case scenario. I want all you business owners to know that within leadership is vision, and have a vision for how this connects to a future possible vision for you. So you don't feel like it's such a burden of that worst case feeling. Go ahead, Marcel.
No, I'm with you. I feel like, the conversation is very good. I feel like it's a thing that, you can do it. But I think at some point it's your decision, and what are you willing to risk? Because for example, I have most of my staff, it's like people that I really need them to run the company. I need those people because they're very, even because the state is it's like in the most studios, so we're like small on the smaller side. So we need everyone in there super specific for that sort of like position. But at the end of the day, it's your decision. Which choices are you gonna make to navigate through this process? I don't think there's right or wrong answer here. But at the end of the day, to me, it's like something that you have to decide.
Yeah, I just got a text from somebody that said, hey, times are brutal. I just lost $2 million in projects in the last 7 days. So that's real-time data coming into me, and thinking through the layoff of a team that he's built up over the last 5 years. And I know this person specifically, it's a very well curated team. Yeah, they have to go through some specific training for the type of creative that they do. So that's just a real-time loss of what people are working with. And that he's trying to think through in the most genuine way of like, what are the medical insurances that he can do? So even in a time of like, well, I'm thinking about releasing some employees, but maybe I can keep their medical benefits going. I think that's a really interesting way of thinking about how to solve a problem and put your best foot forward in a time of like, $2 million loss in revenue is really huge in a 7-day period. That's barely time to react to or respond to what's going on. That's great. Joel, you have another question?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the questions that we keep getting about this question of timing, and I'm also just wondering, like, Marcel, I'm curious to hear from you. If you were this person and say $2 million in projects was suddenly postponed, which is often just another word for canceled, what would you start doing in order to process that in a non-emotional way? Not that the emotional part's not a big thing. I get that. That's going to take a lot to process that. But what would you start doing in terms of just looking at numbers and figuring things out?
Yeah, I would start looking at numbers and see, what are the other solutions that I can bring to the table to try to recoup some of that loss? Is there something I can do? And again, that goes back to what you have control and what you don't have control. Losing the project, you have no control. But how about getting half of that project back? Or how about asking questions? What is the reason we're losing this? Is there anything I can present to them to try to revert that? Is there anything that I can do to say, okay, I know that we cannot, let's say if it's like a live action, production company, I can say, as a live action, company, I would call my client to say, hey, I know we push the shoot, but I don't want your project to stop unless it's stopping for another reason. Is there I can present you a solution that we can still do the project in a different way, meaning like, should I partner up with the animation studio and I can direct the project, with the animation studio, and then we can both work together. So instead of like, I would try to like calculate the loss, not taking as 100% and say, hey, I lost everything. No, I would go back and try to think of ways to sort of like recoup that, try to get it back. And how do I do that? And then that's how you need to be creative, And I think the best way to find those answers is to keep talking to people. Just keep talking to people.
There was an example from João at Mesolab. I think he's in Portugal. That he shared yesterday. Remember in the live stream, Tim, where he talked about, I got this call from a client that said, hey, this big project that you just started on, I think, last month, is being canceled. And he said, well, let's have a conversation. I guess he got the email that's being canceled. He said, let's have a talk, and just got on the phone. And after having an honest conversation, I think they were able to somehow break it down into, like, reduce the project a little bit, but break it into monthly payments spread out over 6 months or something like that. And all of a sudden the project was back on. And I thought, wow, that's just a good example of, I think once you get over that loss aversion and all that emotion and that lizard brain or whatever you want to call it, you can have a conversation called, all right, what's the real problem we're trying to solve? Maybe the problem is different and we can figure out a solution, rather than let's just kill it and deal with it. And you have to go figure out a completely different option for you.
Yeah, let me turn this around a little bit too, because it's there's no doubt that many of us are worried about loss or feeling loss, or as you said, like averse to loss. We're trying to calculate the losses before they would happen. But the way I want to think about it is like, well, what is still remaining? Kind of to your point, Marcel, is like, what do you have control over, and what is still remaining? What is still true about you, regardless of what's happening around us? And those elements haven't gone away. The creative mind, the creative process, the things that you learned, your experience, your knowledge, and many of these resources, even if financially they're not there or client-wise they're not there, the resources and their creative ability and knowledge isn't going anywhere. So the world's going to have a new set of problems to solve, or has a current set of problems to solve, and you are problem solvers. Each one of you are problem solvers, and you can work things through. Joel, in our jumpstart earlier today, I literally dusted off this book because it just is a placeholder on my bookshelf. But I want to show this again because it struck me that one of the jumpstarters has this amazing ability to tell stories. And I thought to myself, wait a second, we're in a time that needs stories. And the book is Just the Century, and it's talking through just the aspects of the last century. They called them the greatest generation. And in this book, there are photograph that tells stories of certain times and certain places. And all I thought of is, what we need right now? Like, we're in the middle of the story. And someone, while these activities were going on, went out and captured those and represented them for people. So we have them now, so we all know that we're in this together. And then we have them later for posterity, so we can see, hey, this is what we all went through and we survived through it. Though this reality is happening right now, we have the opportunity to participate in that larger conversation and bring hope to others. Represent what's going on. And if you're a storyteller and you do live action shoots, or you do editorial and you own an iPhone, I would love to hear those stories. I'd love to know that that's happening right now. And there are people creating and developing and making things happen in our environment. No one's going to pay you to do that. But this is almost a sense of your responsibility. It's really, truly like the responsibility of people on this Zoom call to know that you are those people that have that ability, and it's your time and it's your generation that's going to deal with this, and we can make things happen that way.
Yeah, I love that. And it's also like, I was thinking like, going back to the things that I have control is like, I was even thinking yesterday, I'm like, who needs animation in times of coronavirus? Who actually is in need of what you do? So for example, go back to actually needs it? So I'll go back to like, who needs what we have to offer? What kind of message that people need to get out there? I was even thinking like, yes, I'll throw an idea here. I was thinking like the city of Los Angeles yesterday, do they need our services to make that message clear? Do they need us for example, the whole city is going, into a lockdown, and what things that you can do or not? Maybe there is a need for that kind of, message that we can provide, So this is the things that I keep telling people, like, think about what people need right now, understand the need, and then you can provide the solution. I feel like instead of understanding the need, it's just going to be like, running circles.
Yeah, very smart. It's almost time up. Joel, is anyone else has questions?
I was just going to drop something in the Slack channel about trying to grab. I think Jakin said he can set aside 30 slots in the next 2 weeks, so we'll put those out there and offer those up.
Cool.
But I think we should wrap it up. We went about a half an hour over, but hopefully for those that remain, this has been productive. I'm especially thankful to Marcel. I just love getting your perspective that's so real time and it's right out there at the marketplace. And you're just dealing with all of these responsibilities that everyone else here is probably like, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not crazy. I'm just processing out loud. And that's been most of the feedback that we've heard from people is simply, wow, being able to talk about this stuff and just express our emotions just for starters is really helpful. So thank you, Marcel.
Thank you, guys. And I feel like this is part of our responsibility as like, a member of the industry, is you being able to be reachable and like share knowledge. I feel like it's time that we all talk, and I'm again, I know that'll be awesome. People can, reach out to you guys and have a 30 minutes conversation with experts like yourself. I'm always here if people need to ask any questions or talk or whatever, just reach out. I'm happy to, be a service for the industry.
You're so kind. Hey, Tim, I see we do have John raised his hand. Do we want to try and, you guys have a quick second to check this one?
Sure.
Okay, hang on, John, let me see if we can get you here. John, are you here with us? Do you have a quick question? We're about 30 minutes over.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Fire away.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in because the very thing Tim was talking about, we're about to execute on, Better Cities Film Festival. My initial reaction in this crisis was, oh no, we're going to have to cancel events. Is anyone going to want to come to a film festival? But next week, what we're trying to do together, we have a database of 700 filmmakers that have submitted films about cities and towns in the last 5 years. So what we want to do is do a Zoom conference, much like this one, a Zoom meeting, where we blast all those and invite them to convene, and then invite in a couple of people who are like city historians or historians about public health, and bat around ideas and story angles and ideas for telling stories and films around what's happening in your town, in your city. So sort of activating and seeding that whole community of filmmakers with possible story ideas and things to do and create during this time.
Hey, John, is that going to be available to others? So if people are in a different city, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, Barcelona, they could post things and kind of share some of the stories that are local?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't anticipate them to be sharing films. That's what our film festival is for. But as far as the meeting, it's more about convening those filmmakers who are sort of demonstrated an interest in making films on those themes, and then sort of pitching ideas and brainstorming about, gee, what kind of stories could be told? What stories do we need to be telling and capturing? What is our role as filmmakers and storytellers in this crisis?
I'd love to see next Friday a short film festival. Everyone has to submit, or people can submit a 30-second to a 1-minute story onto a platform, and we'll just have our own little small coronavirus film festival, we'll call it, and share some of those stories. I'd love to figure. I don't know anything about anything. One of you all out there that know how to build a platform or know a platform or want to create a Vimeo account, I don't care how it works, but let's make our own version of this. Let's tell local stories of what's going on. And I don't want it to be TikTok, and I don't want it to be Instagram crap. You guys are filmmakers, you're storytellers, you have great talent. Let's see if we can contribute to the greater good and tell some of these wonderful stories that are happening. I love that. It's a good inspiration. Joel, that reminds me that I'm just going to go over. I don't know. This is just therapy. So I'm going to talk until no participants. Not that bad. But Mark in the Jumpstart group, what an amazing story he's had. So Mark does, I'm going to totally misrepresent you, Mark, so I apologize. But Mark does live events. And what he can do is projection map. He has the equipment to projection map onto buildings. So we thought, screw it. I have the equipment. I'm going to go set up a big projection map on a building. I'm just going to projection map things because everyone's on lockdown. They can't do anything. But I'm going to send something outside of where we are and build this projection map.
Don't miss out the key ingredient, right? Is that he's in Barcelona and everything's in lockdown. You can only go outside if you have like the proper sized pet that needs to use the bathroom.
Right, you can't walk your cat, he said. Like you can't, you have to only walk your dog, right?
Walk your dog. But he said, I'm going to create some sort of a projection mapping, beautiful piece of art to celebrate someday when the virus is over and done. And then what happened, Tim? A few days ago.
The city of Barcelona, and he basically says like the universe opened up because he didn't finish it. He never told anybody. The city of Barcelona contacted him and said, we're going to do a large celebration when this whole thing is over. We're going to have a big, gigantic concert, and we want you to build a projection map and graphic for it. So he basically, thought into being, attracted this idea of like, holy cow, the universe just came to him, and now he has a job. Now he is hired to basically build out this celebratory video. And I was inspired by that too, as you know, Joel. I was like, wait, every city should do this. Like we have people all over with equipment and ideas and thoughts. What's it going to take to kind of like let us be community leaders besides just being business owners and work through some of this together? We own the equipment. We know the people. We can pull this together, and we have definitely the creative need and desire to do it. So let me just encourage one another and start doing some of this stuff together. Yeah. And John, maybe you can just create that Vimeo account. We can do that film festival next week. A 7-day film festival, coronavirus film festival. Next Friday's daily brief. We'll have that out there.
Well, Tim and I both agreed we need to go to, when this is all over, we need to go to Barcelona and celebrate and be there with Mark and his team and say, you imagined it and here it is, and we're celebrating the end of this chapter in human history.
I'm so ready.
All right, Marcel, you going with us?
Yes. It's crazy because I was taking my whole team off in Barcelona because I was going to speak, and I had travel arrangements and everything for everyone. So I'm dying to go back to Europe when this is all done.
Oh man, you and me both.
Marcel, we're not blowing your speaking opportunity by putting you on camera every day, right? You're not going to be commoditized and offs like, you know what, Marcel, we listened to you for a week with RevThink. We don't need you to talk.
Isn't it crazy? My speak is totally different. It's
all right. It will be very different by the time the office back up. We're going to be celebrating something else, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's adjourn for today. And Tim, you and I will be back here on Monday. Marcel, I don't know if you're with us or not, but we'll keep moving forward and having these daily conversations as we continue to process all these crazy things. And check the Slack channel for a link if you want to hop on the phone. And there's also that link I just posted in the Zoom here.
Okay, so I'm going to create some homework before we wrap this thing up. Song suggestions. We need a theme song for this broadcast, and then Joel or Jakin or Ethan or whoever's out there listening to us on our team, we have to figure out how to get that song to play at the beginning and end of this, and maybe we'll loop through a few songs, but it's up to you, the community, to figure out which songs should be our theme song for this broadcast. Please feel free to join our Slack community. If there are channels that would be helpful to open up, I wish I knew Slack well enough to say you can open them yourself. If you can't, you can hit me or Joel up and we'll open up a Slack channel to have different conversations. I created one for content makers. I'm going to speak specifically about content creation because I think there's a very, very interesting opportunity coming up in the next few months in content creation. There's just too many dynamics working together. That's going to require some innovation. And I want to have a different conversation about content, building content, branded content. And I might even invite our old friend, Patrick Jager. Not that Patrick Jager's old, he's just an old friend of mine. Our friend Patrick Jager into that conversation, because there's a lot of opportunity I see these coming up. So I created a content maker channel for that. I also created a channel for a group in LA that Neil from Berkeley wanted to see if there are any local filmmakers and local creatives that want to get together and strategize with resources and opportunities. I also did one more for live action, people in live action, so you can start your own conversation, keep the questions, ideas, and thoughts moving forward. So we're trying to open this up, let the conversation take place. So feel free to request and participate in those channels.
All right.
And again,
we'll get a replay of this up today shortly. We're going to put all these on YouTube so everyone can watch them whenever they want. Marcel, thanks for joining us. Stay safe out there in LA. Thanks to everyone else who joined us from around the world. I see a few Aussies. I see a Moldovan, Jamie from Illinois, and the rest. So thanks, everyone. We'll see you on Monday. Have a safe weekend.
Thank you all for trusting us and being part of this community. We love and respect all of you for what you're doing, and we can't thank you enough for allowing us to participate in this way. And the encouragement has been awesome. So thank you all, and we'll talk to you on Monday.
Yes, let's do it.
Thanks, Marcel. All right, bye, everyone.
Bye, Marcel. Bye, Joel. Thank you.